So this is kind of what I was getting at the other day in the sense that I don't think Henry Cavill is going to have any problem finding work, despite the fact that he's no longer associated with the Witcher franchise or Superman. It was announced, I want to say a couple years ago, that he was going to be involved in the Highlander reboot. I believe that is still at least progressing somewhat in terms of the development being ongoing. But the Hollywood Reporter just announced that he is already circling his next project, which is going to be a Warhammer 40k series for Amazon. Now, this is really interesting because he has made his love for Warhammer known for many years. He loves the miniatures, he loves the games. He's joked about, starring in a film adaptation or doing other things. And in a few interviews that he gave, I think it was earlier this year, he was asked a question by a couple of different people about whether or not he would ever executive produce something, and he was always kind of very sort of danced around that question, saying, "Well, I'd love to, and there's a couple of things in the works that I might be able to, focus my attention on, but we'll see how it all comes together." And it looks like this is going to be it if this ends up going through. Now, it's worth noting that as per the Hollywood Reporter, this is not actually a done deal yet. He is going to be doing this in association with Amazon, and Amazon says is circling um, in terms of closing the rights to the miniature war game. So let's just dive into this real quick. It's said that he is attached to star and executive produce a series adaptation of Warhammer 40k, the popular science fiction fantasy miniature wargame that is set up at Amazon. Amazon is in final talks for the rights to the game, produced by Games Workshop after months of negotiations and fending off rival companies that also sought the rights. Now, I don't want to, throw any fuel on the fire, but I think from my perspective, if you go back to the video that I made when he was originally departing The Witcher, I was assuming and making some projections that it had to do with the Superman franchise. And a lot of people theorized that it's because he was disappointed with the way they were taking the Witcher franchise and away from the books. And then the whole time he was on the Witcher project, he would make comments about his passion for 40k. And a couple of times, I think during filming of season two, he was even talking about how like there was one I remember there was like a chandelier which looked like one of the ships from the Warhammer franchise, and he was like, I mean, every time I walk on set, I see that, and I immediately think of this, and his nerd credibility would go up. So, this is one of those things where it just could be another thing that contributed. But we don't know. I still think it is what it is at this point. But what is interesting to me is that this could be the rumored project that he was going to be executive producing, which he teased in a few interviews earlier this year. Now, again, it's not actually done yet. It says here the Amazon is in final talks for the rights of the game, which is produced by Games Workshop after months of negotiations. It says no writers or showrunners are currently attached, although Vertigo Entertainment is attached to also executive produce. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm not hugely familiar with 40k other than the miniatures and the wargame component. I do know that there are a ton of video games that have come out around the Warhammer universe, and there's some that are like science fiction and some that are like fantasy based. I am not. This is going to sound really strange because despite the fact that I'm a huge D&D nerd and a fantasy nerd and I love video games and everything else, I've actually never played any Warhammer video games, and I am only passingly familiar with the lore of Warhammer because I've always been into other franchises. But I've been at conventions and tournaments where I've seen 40k being played, and I know that it's definitely one of those big inspirations, like the original Dungeons and Dragons, in terms of where we are today with having miniatures and so on and so forth. So they actually give a brief history here for those of you who, like me, don't necessarily know a lot. Um, Warhammer is a lot like D&D, with dice involved for playing the game, including lots of miniatures and the one thing I've noticed when I've seen people play 40k is they often use big battleground maps, and they will have the grid patterns laid out and have all their miniatures and build elaborate sets. We've done that for D&D, but not to the level of what they have available for Warhammer. Um, it says here Games Workshop in the 1980s made miniatures for D&D and then launched their own game in 1987. It has then grown to become the world's most popular miniature war game and spawned a variety of imitators. The setting is 40,000 years into the future where things are very dark. Human civilization has stopped progressing and is in an unending war with aliens and magical beings, with gods and demons figuring into a theological class system. Humans make up the Imperium of Men, who are like a war species, very militaristic. Then there's a race of skeleton-like androids known as the Necron, an elvish race known as Eldari, as well as orcs. Tyranids are aliens, and the Tau are blue-skinned alien race that may offer some hope. It says here, because the project is in such early stages, to reiterate, Amazon has yet to close the deal. This is not the next gig for Cavill, who just recently announced he was exiting his lead role in Netflix The Witcher. Actually, when was this written? Because it showed up on my... Okay, December 15th. I mean, that was yesterday. Um, it says here it's an ambitious move for Amazon and could deliver a show that is epic in scale as it combines the big genres, elements of sci-fi and fantasy, as well as a host of human and non-human characters. Well, I mean, uh, they're already sort of dipping their toes into lots of other franchises. I haven't done a video on it yet. I have a video coming out talking about, Amazon's also going to be doing a God of War adaptation. Um, they've got the Wheel of Time and Game of Thrones. Not Game of Thrones. Sorry, my brain is fried right now. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. And that stupid chicken is going crazy out there. Um, Rings of Power is what I meant to say. So they're no stranger to picking up franchises that they're trying to make into big shows. So this remains to be seen. It would also seem like a sort of a little bit of a coup because to be able to get Henry Cavill away from Netflix, because Henry Cavill has a not just with Witcher, he's also done the what is it the Holmes franchise he's doing with the girl from Stranger Things, um, Anelia Holmes or Mila. I mean, she's playing like a Holmes character. He plays, I think, Sherlock Holmes, and she plays, this younger female character who's like the lead of the show, and he's like a secondary character. I don't know. He's done quite a few projects for Netflix, so it's interesting to see him maybe move away from there and move over to something at Amazon. But this, like I said, this comes back to when I was saying earlier. I don't think him no longer being associated with The Witcher or the Superman is going to do anything to his career because he's got lots of prospects like the Highlander show and this Warhammer thing. And what's important about this is that it's beyond just being an actor. This allows him to set himself up with an executive producer credit, which comes with a lot of other perks and responsibilities, but also just benefits beyond just what you get as an actor, above and beyond the paycheck. So if you can pull this off and do a good job with this show, then that opens up more opportunities and more doors in the future for him to executive produce and other things. I would like to look at, say actors like Brad Pitt who got into executive producing earlier in their career, and in the later years, even though many would see their acting career as being sort of, you know, on the decline, like him and George Clooney. Like they don't take as many big projects as they used to. They don't need to. They're producing a lot of things. So they're still getting big paychecks every year, but they're behind the scenes doing creative decision making as opposed to being in front of the camera. So if Cavill can pivot, which he's talked about wanting to do with special projects, this sounds like the right thing for him. If he's as passionate about this and he's in a position where he can control the creative storyline, I think this is something that would give him way more. Um, I think he would be way more involved in this than even he was with The Witcher, because with The Witcher he was very passionate about the source material, but he wasn't allowed to be in the writer's room or to be making creative decisions as an executive producer. Whereas here he would very much be in that position, which for someone like him may be exactly what he wants, and it may be why he's chosen to pursue this. We don't know exactly, but it sounds cool. I'm interested. I think it's gonna be cool. Can't wait to see what's gonna come to about up this project. Hopefully, it comes to fruition. Sounds like it's in the works. All the stars may align. Love to hear your thoughts. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, support with the membership, drop a super thanks, super chat, join the Patreon page, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.